Hi there, welcome back to the channel. And this time I'm doing another one of those luxury transistor radios, the ones I really love. These are from the 70s. This one is a Blaupunkt Derby Commander. It's the result of the previous one I did, a Derby, which came out beautifully. I really love that little radio. But somebody said the performance of this guy was a lot better. So what can I do? I had to get it, and I did. It was bought as not working, but in terms of enclosure, in terms of the look, it looks pretty good. The condition is very good. This thing is 51, 52 years old. So it's absolutely amazing. The quality of these radios that came out at the time were completely astounding. Nothing like the rubbish that came afterwards when they were trying to cut costs and everything. These things were not cheap. They're not cheap now, but they certainly do stand out. So what I set out to do on this video was to restore the whole thing. The idea was do the electronics, do the cabinet and chassis restoration. Whatever car I came across, I was going to handle it, and it's done. And I'm really pleased with the result. Somebody's going to get a good Christmas present. So if you enjoy this sort of thing, join me, stick around and enjoy the video. This is a Blaupunkt Derby Commander, and I got this one after doing the previous restoration on a Derby, a Blaupunkt Derby. That was that little small one, the yellow one, really neat looking. And the reason I got this one is that when I did the previous one, many of you suggested I try this one out, and I started looking for it. And I found this one, which I thought was in fairly good condition for its age. And it is indeed in good condition. But there are a few scuffs and scratches and all the usual stuff that you'd expect from this. I mean, this thing is from 1970, I believe they were sold between 71 and 73. So this should be a nice little project to do and get this thing really sparkling again, get it into absolutely mint condition. So what are we facing here? Well, that front grille looks very good. It just needs a bit of cleaning, as does that cloth on the inside. That chrome looks like it'll just need a bit of polishing, as does the plastic. I see signs of tape there, which is not a good thing. We'll look on the underside in a second. The back again looks okay, just some cleaning and polishing. It came with rather a big plug, and I'm sure that's not the original, because in the original, the entire thing fits on a little hole on the underside, and that plug will definitely not fit there. As for the top, it looks pretty good. A little bit of rust and some dirt on the knobs and everything else, but all the knobs are here. That's usually the biggest problem with these things. The antenna, oh dear. Yeah, it's a little bit crusty, a lot of grease in there, but I think it's intact. Yep, it's intact, so I'm going to leave it in there for now, because that will be fully recoverable. And what we've got here, we've got an AFC switch, which is not clicking. We've got a dial lamp. When you've got it on battery, you don't want it draining the battery, so you'd only click it in or push it in when you need the light itself. We've got the on-off switch, which seems to be working. We've got treble and bass. They're both moving quite smoothly. Then we've got M2. There's two medium wave bands, M1 and M2. And I see here that the medium wave is divided into two bands. The lower one going from about 500 and something kilohertz to 1400 and something, and the other one starts at 1400 and something and goes up to 16 something. So that should be quite good for tuning. Then we've got long wave. Long wave goes from under 150 to 300 and something. And then we've got two shortwave bands. There's K2 and K2. K2 is shortwave 2, and that covers the 49 meter band and the 41 meter band. And then K1, which is shortwave 1, covers the 31 meter band to 19 meter band. And we have then FM. FM goes from 88 to 108. So this is the full band, which is pretty nice. And then there's an auto button, and I think this is what you click when you want to use this in a car. I'll show you that in a second. But the important thing to note is that the dial glass is intact. No major scratches or anything like that. And we also see that the dial pointer is moving with the tuning, which means that the dial string is not broken. There's also an option for connecting external audio, and I'm not sure where this is supposed to go in together. You see those two? If you put them together, oh, it's clicked now. If they're both in, this thing will then pass through the external input, auxiliary input of some sorts, but I'm not sure where that would come in because I haven't seen a socket for that at all. Let's look on the underside. Well, I think I've just found the external auxiliary input. There's a 5-pin DIN socket in there, which I'm sure will be an auxiliary input, probably a tape out as well. I'm not sure. We'll look at the schematic soon. And on the underside, we've got this socket, which is actually for a car adapter. These radios, a lot of these radios at the time had the socket at the bottom. You would fit this into a proper adapter in your car, which had a plug, a male version of this socket. And that would mean that you could then send the audio to your car speakers. It would connect to your car antenna, and it would also get power from your car battery. So that is important. I think that's what that auto switch at the top is for. Those are very tarnished. I don't know anybody who'd use that now, but it's there. And the purpose of this rail is precisely for that. You would have some sort of adapter in your car where this would slide into that and it would hold it in place, and that would fit nicely into the plug. We've got, I believe this is a battery compartment, and it's coming out. Okay, it comes out completely. This was for 6 batteries, 2 at the top and 4 at the bottom. So this will work with 9 volts. The contacts are in there at the bottom as well, and I'm not sure which is positive, which is negative, which is why I'm a little reluctant to try this right now. I've got to look at the breakout on this, make sure I get the polarity right, or otherwise I'll just take it out of the chassis. And then we have this guy over here, which is held in place with plastic, with tape. So I think the grips have broken. This is where you would normally, this is where you'd fit, that's broken off there. This is where you normally would fit your cable. Everything would fit in there, including the plug. And as you can see, I don't think this plug will fit in there, but maybe it will, but I'm sure we can fix that. So what am I going to do now? As tempted as I am to power it up, I'm a little afraid of powering up with mains because I don't know what's happening inside here. This thing's been around for a long time and it was listed as not working. So I want to power it up with the bench supply with a current limited supply on 9 volts and see what we get. But again, I think it'll just be as easy to remove it from the chassis and see what we're looking at inside before we actually power this thing. It shouldn't be dramatic, it shouldn't be a big problem, but I might as well just get it out of there and see what it is that we're facing. Getting out of the case starts with removing the knobs. First these two, the AFC and the light bulb, and then those 3 knobs at the top with a little help from something I 3D printed. Just makes it a lot easier and doesn't scratch the surfaces. And then, of course, the tuning knob as well, which in this case was a little bit more stubborn. Then we've got 4 screws at the back, the 2 that are holding that rail on, as well as the 2 on the ends. And then it's just a question of pulling that chassis up, and it comes out quite neatly. And I don't have to divine this because, for a change, all this is described in the service manual. Quite useful. Okay, this is what we've got. A lot of stuff in this little radio. This thing is very, very compact. And the tuning condenser is turning perfectly fine. That's good. It's not stuck. Wow. There's a lot of stuff here. Look at this speaker. This thing is in perfect condition. A little bit of dust. But this is quite a hefty speaker for a radio of this size, so it should produce some pretty amazing sound. Tuning condenser is fine from the front as well. And we've got our power transformer. No switch mode stuff here. And having a look at the back there's a bit of a dark area there, may have been heat. The knobs seem to be all there. They just need some polishing, which is par for the course. And of course I'm going to have to clean those pots very well. One is the switch, power and volume, and the others are the tone. And when we go and look at this, it looks like I'm going to have to remove the speaker to get into some of the components on the board there. That's pretty normal on these radios. And then we've got the output section over there, which has the 2 push-pull transistors. Okay, let's look for the power section. Supply 9 volts to this, see if we've got any life. All right, I've got a 9 volt supply going into the battery compartment there. I made sure that I got these right. This is the positive, this is the negative. So I made sure I got that right. I've got, let's put a 100 milliamp limit on there, just in case. And we'll switch it on. Oh, there's some life. What is this on now? This is on long wave. Well, the amplifier is working. It's very low volume. I must say I expected more. Medium wave. I can barely hear it. The light is burnt out. Let's try, what is that? That's shortwave 1, I think. Can hardly hear it, but I haven't got an antenna on here. So let's try FM. Oh, we've got something. Yeah, we've got something. Yes. Yes. Let me try put an external antenna on here. I'll just connect it to the rod over there, the external FM. Yeah, big difference. Let's get this to a ground point. Where's ground? Just the chassis, I guess. I'm actually picking up FM from the Canary Islands. Pity it's so low. It's clear, but very low. I think it's something to do with the output with the amplifier stage, but let's see what we get on medium wave, if anything, with the little antenna on there. I'll put the mini whip on. I don't know if it's going to work on there. I can hear something. Let's try shortwave. It's making no difference. All right, I'm going to sort out the audio first. I'll focus on actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the speaker, replace some of the electrolytic caps in there, maybe a few tantalums. I think I can see one through there. That is usually the first step on trying to get these things back to life. These electrolytic caps are, 50 years old? Bloody hell, this thing's 50 years old, 51, 52 years old. That is amazing. I'm going to replace the electrolytic caps, see if we get the audio up, as I hope we can. I've seen this before. I think on the previous Derby, I had the same issue. This capacitor here, I believe, is the one that couples the output from the transistors to the speaker. So that's the first suspect I'm going to look at. But I think I'll just do all the electrolytics and then switch it on again and see what we get. Let's remove the speaker. There are actually 2 screws and more than 2 holes, so somebody might have been in here before me. We will see. So 2 screws and this thing just comes out. Yeah, as expected, we get access to most of the back of that board. We can see a lot of the electrolytics on there. I can see a few things here that may be concerning. That seems to have been really badly repaired. I'll have to rewire that. We can see the socket, the back end of the socket. Some electrolytics, that's probably the power one. A few more over here. Some more on there. There's one down at the bottom that's going to be tricky to get to. You get access to all the alignment section, the coils and the IF transformers. Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward. I'm going to get cracking and replace the electrolytics and tantalum that I can see there and see what we've got. And we'll take it from there. Well, that was a bit of a mission. A little bit more than I counted on, because I actually removed this board. Well, the entire assembly really, because I wanted to get to some capacitors over here, which were a little difficult. And this involved removing that screw there, the one at the bottom, the 2 screws that hold the socket, the car socket to the bottom. It's just a question of carefully following through and finding out what's holding what, and then slowly but carefully removing it. There are a few studs there that you have to unbend. I'm not going to go into detail on this because every radio is going to be different, but you don't need to do that. But I decided to do that because it would have made It did make my life a lot easier. And now all the capacitors, all the electrolytics have been replaced. And now it's just a matter of putting this whole thing together very carefully, because I'm pretty anxious to get this thing started up again to see whether the audio is back. Okay, everything is back in place. I've got the speaker connected. I actually wired 2 new wires on there for the speaker. So I have the speaker temporarily connected over here with some croc clips. And now the moment of truth. Nothing. Oh, it would help if I activated the supply. I've got 9 volts on there. Whoa, yeah, this goes loud. Ooh, too loud. Oh, that's brilliant. Don't expect anything on here, but let's try the mini whip anyway. A shortwave. Ah, brilliant. This thing's working very, very well. The sound is awful because this thing is out of the enclosure, but it's working very, very well. I am so pleased. I am so pleased. I'll have to decide on whether it needs alignment or not once I've tested this properly. I need to find out where the antenna should be connected if I want to get good shortwave, for example. I'm not sure that combination there is the best place for the mini whip to be connected to, but we'll find out soon enough. So what do I need to do next? Well, the speaker actually does need a little bit of work. There's a small tear over there, so I'll fix that up. All this felt is perfectly malleable and fine. I'll remove all this tape and clean it up, and then I'll clean up this side and I'll get this ready to fix into the cabinet. I've also got another screw. This thing had 3 screws on here. There were only 2. Actually, there's supposed to be 4, but the top one is not used. And I found a screw that's the same type. It's also sort of brass. This is what you get from not throwing anything away. I never throw parts away, like hardware, screws, washers. All those things come in useful much later when you least expect it. So let me sort this out, put it back in there, and we'll see what we need to do next. I need to do I know that I need to adjust the quiescent current and all that sort of stuff. That's all in the manual. So I'll take this one step at a time. Yep, I decided to start with the antenna. This thing was really bugging me, all that crust and grime that I saw on there. So it's just a question of removing one screw, and then it comes out after you desolder the antenna wire. And after cleaning it up, it's just a question of doing the reverse. It's already soldered, that's in there. And the one thing that I was surprised about is that this thing was not as grimy as I thought. This color is actually a goldish bronze. So what I thought was like nicotine stain or something is actually the color of this antenna, which is actually quite nice. And it's all cleaned up well, and I'll show you. It now comes out at the end, and of course it can rotate. Actually, it only rotates that way. Why doesn't it rotate? Usually these things rotate. Yeah, it does. It does. Just probably needs a little bit more lubrication or a little bit more time for the machine oil that I put in there to work. So that's one more thing done. And I did do some more. I actually took the opportunity to lubricate some things like the connections on there, or rather the pivot points on the tuning condenser, and also everything that moves. So all these pulleys have been lubricated, both on this side and on the other side. And these spots in the switch have been cleaned. Those two push button switches have been cleaned. I think I'll try and remove these guys and clean all those switches because they certainly need it. Okay, all these have been cleaned. I did not remove them. They were very difficult to take out. So I cleaned them in situ because I don't want to risk breaking this. This has got that plastic section underneath, a little bit like you see here. And by this time, after 50 years, the plastic's incredibly brittle. If you force it too much, you'll break it. If you break it, you're in for a lot of hurt. So this was cleaned in place and they cleaned out beautifully. These two knobs are only here for testing now because I'm going to show you how this thing works right now. I must say that it caught me out for a while and I'll explain why in a second. Let me put it on medium wave and connect the mini whip to the antenna as I normally do, and we'll switch it on. Yep, it's picking up, but there's a problem. And this is what I found out, and it happens for all the bands. My mini whip needs a ground. And this, what I had done before, is I'd connected it to this plate on the side here, which I assumed was ground, and then found out it wasn't ground at all because I checked the continuity between here and the system ground and found that it wasn't ground at all. So when I did find a ground and connected the clip to ground, this is what happens. It picks up fantastically, as usual. That's medium wave. Long wave actually picks up something here. Pretty good. Short wave 2, I think, is the... Short wave 1 is more active right now. And then FM is fabulous. The sound is really, really good. Speaker sounding really good. The AFC works very well. See that? There's with AFC, without AFC. Beautiful. So that's working really, really well. One more thing that I did is that repair on the speaker. I painted this rim around here with that white glue, wood glue. It paints on white and then when it dries it becomes transparent. And this section down here had another layer, which is why it's still white. It hasn't dried completely, but this speaker has turned out to be perfect. So I'm really pleased with that. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do about the ground for the mini whip, because if I want to listen to FM, the rod antenna is perfectly fine. It doesn't need the external one. But if I want to listen to any of the AM bands, shortwave, medium wave, or long wave, I need that ground. And I don't know if there's an actual ground to the outside, considering this chassis is not system ground. So I may have to find a way of creating maybe just a screw that's connected to ground or something like that. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that, because otherwise I can't use the mini whip on this radio, which is a shame. And I always use my mini whip for just about all the radios I have in here. So I am really, really chuffed with this. And I'm actually going to stop for now, because what I need to do next on the electronics, I only need to adjust the bias on this, the crescent current, which is very simple. I'll show you that when I do that. I'll also be showing the schematic and show you what it is that I changed. But I'm going to stop for now, because my next job is the cabinet, and the actual cabinet needs quite a bit of work. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it should be fun. I want to get it really, really nice, because this thing is in impeccable condition as it is, and I think it deserves a chassis that matches that. So I want this radio to, when it's finished, look like it's sort of sat in Granny's cupboard for all that time and not been used. but is still 50 something years old. I want to show you something as well. This thing, this light bulb over here, I wasn't sure whether it was burnt or whether there was something else wrong with this. I think we can see it. If I push light bulb, get this connected on there. There we go, 9 volts. So the switch is working, the power is getting there, the light bulb is burnt out. Not quite sure what I'm going to replace that with, because this is rather a strange light bulb. I may have to convert it into an LED. I'll see how it goes. Well, here she is, folks. She is complete. I decided to go all out and finish the case because filming someone cleaning with a toothbrush for me is not too exciting. So I did the full cleaning of the enclosure. I did polishing of the plastics. I had to be very, very careful with the silver over here because this is not metal. This is actually painted on, and I noticed there's a scratch there that I can't get rid of. But since the radio is used like this, it's not something that anybody's going to see. The knobs cleaned out perfectly. They are in perfect condition. The chromes on the side are impeccable. I did a bit more. I replaced the dial lamp. And what I did was I wanted to put a LED in there. This thing gets 9 volts or 12 if you're connecting this to a car. So I took a white LED, ultra bright white LED, and I broke the lamp that was on there and fitted that LED with a series resistor into it, into the enclosure, and soldered it up so that I now have a white LED in there, which I've noticed when I use it on mains power stays on all the time, and this switches it off. And when you've got it on battery power, it stays off all the time, and this switches it on. Quite neat, makes sense, right? The power supply, the actual main supply, is in perfect condition. I did a cleanup of the mains cord and the plug. That is like instant gratification. If you want to get some instant gratification, clean that. It's easy and it looks completely different. Makes your radio look much, much better. I also designed and 3D printed a little clip for that enclosure where you fit in the mains cable and plug at the bottom, which by the way fits. I noticed that plug does fit in there. You've got to just wind the cable around. And what I did is I just 3D printed it, super glued it on there, and it's working perfectly well right now. So here's our Derby Commander with a really nicely cleaned up face. The knobs and the actual plastic cleaned up very, very well. I just polished the surface without going too aggressive on it because I don't want to take any of the writing off. The sides were polished as well. The back cleaned up properly. It's looking good. And that's where I'm going to leave you, folks, and I hope you've enjoyed that. And if you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon and PayPal. Links are in the description below. So once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now, and most of all, stay safe.